Welcome everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Roy Tennyson. I'm the president of the golf club this year. We've got kind of a two-part presentation tonight. Over the course of the summer, the board and committees have been very busy looking at options, going over the master plan. The Greens Committee spent a lot of time working with the golf course architect on that. That's what the first part of the presentation. Barbara Taylor, the Greens Committee chairperson, is going to go over the master plan, which is kind of the basis for a lot of the discussion that I'll be going over with you in the second part of the presentation. We really looked at a number of things this summer and are coming to you now, kind of in a two-part process, really in the second part of a four-part process, but to share with you what we've learned over the course of the summer about the options for addressing the issues here at Terra Vita. And then to get feedback from you. That's what all these forums are about, is to hear from the members, the investors in the club, about where we go forward and to process that. And I'll kind of explain that process as I get to that part of the presentation. But I'm going to turn it over to Barbara right now, who will go through the master plan with you. The Greens Committee kind of went bush by bush, sand trap by sand trap. She's not going to go into that much detail, but close. But go over each hole. So, Barbara.
Not quite as tall as Ray. First of all, I really appreciate the opportunity to review the master plan with all of you, and I hope that you enjoy looking at it. As Ray said, it's not bush by bush, but it's from a playability standpoint, an aesthetic standpoint, and a maintenance standpoint. But before I start on the master plan, what I wanted to do is recap some of the background on Phil Smith, who is the golf course architect. Quick question, how many of you have had the chance to watch the video on the website about Phil? Perfect, perfect. So I will recap Phil somewhat briefly. But as you read, Phil worked for 10 years with Jack Nicklaus. Then he worked for 14 years with Tom Weiskopf as Tom's exclusive designer. Finally, in 2012, Phil decided to start his own company, and it's right here in the Scottsdale area. Phil has helped design or renovate many, many courses throughout the United States, as well as 7 other countries. And, you know, he's an absolute delight to work with. But just to recap, in 2017, Phil Smith did an overview report for Terra Vita. Then in 2018, he was interviewed along with some other architects by the Greens Committee and the board, both. Okay. Then in 2018, he was chosen to be our golf course architect, and at that point, he was asked to design a master plan for Terra Vita that would do various things. One, it would address our aging infrastructure, irrigation, bunkers. Also, take a look at existing playability issues, improve aesthetics, and correct some of the various maintenance snags on the course. This past June, we received the first renderings from Phil, we being the Greens Committee, and since day one, the Greens Committee has been very impressed with Phil, both as a person and also as a designer. Over the summer, as Ray mentioned, we held many meetings with Phil. He was very, very accessible, and again, looking at things from playability, aesthetics, and maintenance. As an understatement, I really appreciate the time that the various Greens Committee members spent this summer. And I would like to acknowledge them by name. They've been at previous forums. Daryl Westphalen, Jack Huston, Betsy Lewin, Linda Gary, Frank Diedrichs, and Mike Cushman. And they represent a wide cross-section of our golf membership in terms of experience, handicap, gender, and overall interest in the golf course. In addition, Maddie Francis and Jeff Savage are on the Greens Committee, and they provide valuable input from their respective areas. I just want to kind of segue here into Phil's basic philosophy of course design, and it's shaped by very traditional values of golf. And that's probably as a result of having worked with both Nicklaus and Weiskopf for so many years. But what Phil considers the purpose of a master plan, he considers a master plan to be a roadmap for a club's future. And that's exactly what he has designed for us, a roadmap. Here at Terra Vita, we have a very aging irrigation problem, as we all know. And it affects so many components, be it drainage, be it watering, be it playability, maintenance, etc. And the expected life of an irrigation system is about 25 to 30 years, according to the American Association of Golf Course Architects. We're on year 27. Installing a new irrigation system would result in a new pump station, HDPE pipe throughout the course, greatly improved watering, and greatly improved drainage, just for starters. The next component of course renovation, and Phil considers this to be the #1 most important part of a golf course, it's bunkers. To quote Phil, bunkers give a course its true identity. I've probably heard Phil Smith say that a minimum of 9 or 10 times, okay? And he believes that each bunker should have a purpose and that each bunker should be strategic. You don't just plunk a bunker because you want it or you think it looks pretty. It needs to have purpose, and it also needs to be strategic. Originally, if there's anybody here who is an original member, we had 158 bunkers at Terra Vita. Right this minute, we have 63. Now, many of those grass swales that you see on the edge of the fairway on 13, on 15, those used to all be bunkers. But when they took out the bunkers, they didn't do a real good job of recontouring and reshaping. And ever since then, those swales really have been problematic, especially from a mowing standpoint. I'm sure you've noticed some uneven pieces at times. With the new master plan, 25 bunkers would be removed and 15 would be added, thus a net loss of 10. Okay, now those big bunkers that will be taken out, an example, number 18, fairway bunker on the right, huge. It'll be gone, replaced by a much smaller, attractive bunker on the right. And one other example, number 9, picture it. The fairway bunker's on the right side of 9. Both of those bunkers will be gone, not replaced. So all of a sudden, you have a lot of square footage that's less than what we had before. And to give you an idea, we have 103,000 square feet of bunkers, okay? The new master plan would reduce that number by over 33,000 square feet. And that would be a very significant help to our maintenance crew. Moving on to our greens, which have always been a huge part of Terra Vita's identity, I have heard Phil say many times that the greens at Terra Vita are some of the most challenging greens in Arizona and some of the most unfair, okay? Phil would reshape many of the greens just slightly, and he would make some of them smaller. As you're aware, many of our greens are very perched. In other words, they're high in the middle, very perched and highly pitched. We have greens that are 5%, 6%, 7% pitch. USGA recommendation is 1.5 to 2%, just to give you an idea. Picture it, our number 3, our number 12. You can picture some of those problematic slopes. As far as once the greens are rebuilt, because people have said, well, we have to relearn the greens all over. Not all over, because the greens will still break in basically the same direction. They will just break more slowly. That's what the difference will be. So they won't just go zooming along. Many of our greens run severely front to back. They go down, okay? One thing that Phil would do on many of our greens that go front to back, he would not just raise up the back so that it's equal. What he would do is he would take the front and lower it. And the reason for that is so that you can see the green from the fairway. Because a lot of times you can't see real well, and by doing it that way, then you would have visibility. But the biggest thing with Phil in his redesign of our greens is the fact that once completed, 85% of the surface area of every green would be able to handle a pin placement. That's huge. We have so much area where you can't put a pin, on our holes. So 85% of each green, that's a huge improvement. And regarding the tees, and I'm getting close to the master plan, don't worry. Regarding our tees, Phil would keep our black tees. He considers them to be an integral part of our course. However, he would reduce the size of several of them. On several of our par threes, what Phil would do is merge some of the tees. And by doing that, for instance, number 8, take the gold, burgundy, white, blue tees. That would be one huge teeing ground, kind of like an amoeba, that's what it would look like. And then tees could be moved more easily, less wear and tear, easier on maintenance, and a very stylistic look. He wouldn't do that on every par 3, but he would do it on several par 3s. And in Phil's master plan, it calls for a new set of tees to be added. And these would be called the green tees. These tees would be a combination of 7 existing gold tees and 11 new forward tees. And these green tees would provide an option for many of the ladies at our club, as well as anybody who would like to play them. I've talked with the president of the 9-hole group, and the idea of these new green tees was very well received. Some of you might be thinking, I happen to be looking at some of the men's faces in here, why do we need another set of tees? Well, the men can go from the black tees to the players' tees to the blue tees to the members' tees to the white tees. A lot of options. 95% of our ladies play the gold tees. They have nowhere to move, nowhere. So finally, with a set of green tees, this would give people an option. And now what I want to do, and I thank Jeff for going hole by hole with me, what I want to do is share Phil's renderings with you, just some of the key parts of the master plan. I think you'll enjoy seeing how he addresses playability and aesthetics, and most of all, that makes the play more enjoyable. And so with that, we'll go to hole number 1. And I apologize for going back to the 19th century, but let me tell you something. When you have a laser and you're in the back room and you see a little tiny red dot up there, you actually might not be able to see it because it's so small. Okay, so I know that you can see that better. So, at any rate, 19th century technology.
As long as you don't hit us.
No. Okay, hole number 1, going to look pretty much just like it always has, okay? I'm going to address questions that people have asked me a lot about. The tree on number 1 stays, okay? All the tees are the same. These 2 bunkers on the right-hand side, they just are a little bit smaller and reshaped. Phil will reshape virtually every bunker on our course just to make it more attractive and more playable. Up on the green here, the front left bunker is here. The back left green side bunker will be gone, okay? No bunkers are added on this hole. So, and again, and I'm not going to go over every green, but you can work from the assumption that Phil will level out to an extent every green so that, for instance, on number 1, you know how the ball goes to the back left quadrant? That's not going to happen in that manner. So, at any rate, hole number 1 is looking like it pretty much always has. Hole number 2. On hole number 2, again, all the tees are the same. A lot of clearing out in that area there, you might notice. The tree stays in the middle. We have very few defining trees at Terra Vita, but the ones we do, this one, 12, 14, they're important. And we conveyed that message very clearly to Phil. On hole number 2, the bunkers stay the same, they're just smaller. But this whole area in front of the green, you know how you hit a pretty good shot, it hits and it goes to the right and you're underneath the tree? The approach to our greens, he's going to make so that they are much fairer than they are now, okay? So that would be hole number 2. And as you might notice, here is the first green tee, playing at 291 yards instead of the 318 yards. And again, we'll have 11 new forward tees. Okay, hole number 3.
Barbara, can I just emphasize one thing? In the taking out of the pitch of the greens, that should enable us to speed the greens up more when we want to, right?
That's correct, yeah. Because see, right now, when you have a green that is so pitched like we have, and if you were to stimp that green, you can't really, because it's going to go so fast on kind of the somewhat level part. Once you got to a little slope, that ball is going to be off the green. And that's not what, golf courses are actually supposed to be. And so yes, we will be able to increase the green speed with this. Hole number 3, Phil did design improvements on 4 holes, 3, 10, 17, and 18. On number 3, here we are back here with the tees, and he is taking out 1 tee because, it's not used or it duplicates yardage of something else. So on number 3, you hit your tee shot per usual, you're down in this area, okay? Now, normally we hit our second tee shot and we're over here towards the end of the fairway. But Phil is going to add another entryway to the green. And you see all those X's? This is the wash on the left-hand side. Those X's represent trees, some very small, some medium size. But in other words, if somebody has a ball up in this area, like on their tee shot, they could then go for the green here. Because you see all these little wavy green lines? That's all added turf. He's going to take this area, the left front of the green, and he's going to come out and he's going to make it an entryway to that green, okay? So even if you don't get there, at least you have a chance to be in a decent spot, okay? I'm going to backtrack now to the regular route. The regular route, you don't have to worry about going in that huge bunker at the end because it's not going to exist, okay? Plus, you can't see it. What Phil is going to do is take it out and put in 2 smaller bunkers, but what he's going to do is he's going to put them a little bit on a hill so that you can see them from the fairway. Okay, he's big on elevating some of the bunkers that are in strategic locations. So then we're here playing the hole the normal way. Then we hit our shot to the green. And you notice there's a new bunker. On the right-hand side, this is a new bunker. The bunker on the left, he has made smaller so that it doesn't totally block that new entryway from the left. And this little bunker, the back one, is gone. Okay? And that's pretty much hole number 3. Okay, hole number 4. On 4, and here's an example of those merged tees. See right here? This encompasses burgundy, white, and I think blue sometimes, because I know blue is over there. But you can see that larger tee area, okay? And this is hole number 4. The left bunker is gone, the left fairway bunker. The right fairway bunker stays, okay? Left and right green side bunkers stay, and behind the green, that bunker is gone, okay? And some people might think, geez, he's making the course easier. It depends how you look at it. What Phil is doing is, and he brought this up a couple of different times, he's making the course more playable. If somebody is a good player and they think it's easier, well, they should be on the green in regulation regardless of what is changed. But playability is what Phil emphasizes. And he has added strategic bunkers on many holes. He's changed things like different routes. So to say that it's easier, I believe, is a misnomer. It's more playable, and you might not miss a couple bunkers that are gone, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to score that much better, okay? Okay, hole number 5. On hole number 5, if those trees are in the way, and some of them have already been removed, they would come out if they block visibility from the men's tees. Now on hole number 5, we have 10 bunkers. People have challenged me on that. I say, well, just count them the next time that you're playing. We have 6 on the left and we have 4 on the right. On the left, he would take out 3. The first, the second, and this one way back here that people might not even know exists. Still leaving 2 bunkers. On the right-hand side, fairway bunker stays, but up near the green, he would take out the middle one. And where he takes out a greenside bunker, what Phil does is he makes like a retention area so that there's an area for your ball to go. It doesn't just, disappear. In other words, he has it sculpted. So that's the big thing on number 5, the bunker reduction. Next hole is number 6. Okay. On number 6, bunker on the right is still there. The trees are still there near the wash. The hole goes along. The left bunker is there. But what he wants to do with that long, skinny back right bunker, he wants to take it out and make what he calls 2 splash bunkers, kind of like on number 3. He wants to angle them up so that you can see them. But between these bunkers and the green, he would have one of those retention areas so that at least you're not just going to go over the green and end up in the bunker. There's going to be a retention area there. Hole number 7. On number 7, and once again, you can see there's a tee removed here. This is another hole where they added a green tee. It's 391 instead of the existing 449. First right fairway bunker stays, so does the second one, so does the first one on the left. Then Phil wanted to add a bunker left fairway. This is about 150 yards out, okay? They're kind of like little swales and hills there. Then there was discussion. Phil wanted to remove this bunker. Some of the Greens Committee thought this would be a better bunker to remove. We listened to Phil. He is the expert, the professional, and he said this is a better bunker to remove from a balance standpoint on the hole. And this bunker will be removed. The one that is slightly closer to the green will be reshaped. You know how it has a very, very steep back to it? That back will come down somewhat so that you can see over it, so you can see the green. And then when Phil told us he wanted to add a bunker to the left of the green, we almost died because we all go there when it's a back left pin. He originally wanted to add 2 bunkers there. Anyway, there's just 1 bunker there, and once again, for balance, and then he explained why. And after you've had so many meetings, it's like, you know what? He is the expert. Let's go with it. So that's hole number 7. Hole number 8. And here's another example of the merged tees. Here you go. You've got gold, burgundy, white, okay, and blue. Hole number 8 is going to be a little bit fairer on the approach. The bunkers on the right and left will be reshaped. The bunker on the left will be moved over just a little bit so that the initial approach on number 8 is a little bit wider and a little bit fairer, so that when your ball hits and it's 1 yard from where you wanted it to land, it doesn't hit and go into the right-hand greenside bunker. In other words, there's just going to be a little bit of a recontouring that goes by. And you might have noticed the boulders are already gone from the left side of the bunker, which he wanted to do. Hole number 9. Okay, up here you'll notice this men's tee was removed. It's 338 yards, just like the blue tee that's equal to it at 338 yards. Phil wanted to remove this bunker right here. And one of the purposes of a Greens Committee is to share local knowledge with the expert. And we told Phil, this is when it's a blue tee, 95% of the time the blue tee is right here. It's not over there on the left. And so he changed his opinion and he recommended taking out this one instead of that one. Going along the fairway bunkers on the right, both of them are gone. Fairway bunker on the left stays. Then you get to the 9th green. And the first kind of green side bunker on the left stays. Middle one goes, the third one stays. The back left bunker is gone. The back right one, he's going to reshape, but it will be there, but it's not going to be that humongous thing that it is now. The other thing he's going to do, you see those wavy lines, he's going to fill in with turf the area up until the trees, so that when your ball hits here, first of all, the approach is going to be contoured better. But if you go down here, you're not going to be on all of that stuff. Okay, call it rock, sand, desert. So it will be a fairer situation. Okay, hole number 10. And this is the second hole that from a design standpoint, Phil has done differently. And again, this is just a road map. We've got our tees, got another green tee here. This is the wash. This X represents the innermost tree. It would be removed. We still have 2 next to it, but the big one with the Y trunk would be gone. Then, if you can tell here, Phil has taken our green and moved it all the way next to the water. To quote him, he said, "You can have a wonderful Sunday pin placement right there." And that's true. But here we have our number 1 handicap hole, which is our showcase, and it doesn't really look like it a lot of the times. But he would move the green over, take out the bunker that's on the left side of the green, add one in the back so that you're not penalized if you go over, and he'd keep the ones on the side. He would add a little pot bunker here. This is one of the 15 that he would add. And again, for balance, okay, he would add a little pot bunker there. The other thing, and it probably won't come to fruition, but what Phil would like to do on the wash, he would like to lower it about 3 feet on this side so that when you're here hitting your second shot, you can see the lake. Because otherwise you don't get to see the lake, which is a primo feature on our course. But that requires engineering that might be beyond us. So that's pretty much it for number 10. Let's go on to hole number 11. On number 11, our only hole without any bunkers. Another example of merging the tees. He would have gold, burgundy, and white here. And I realize there's another white tee as well. There would be no bunkers would be added. And any trees that might be in the way would be taken care of if they impair the visibility from the men's tees. That green would change tremendously because it would not be what it is today, which is somewhat ridiculous. So that would be reshaped. Hole number 12. On number 12, pretty much normal. Here's your first shot. Okay, then you're coming down. Tree in the middle stays. Your shot to the green, we will maybe help. There's a dead tree there that will be coming out. The shot to the green, you still have your green side left bunker, but the green side bunker on the right will be removed. And in its place, you see these little wavy lines. There is turf added there so that when you hit your third shot, at least there's some kind of retention area for your shot if it goes to the right a little bit. But that bunker would be gone. He questioned why that was ever added a few years ago. Now, on the turf here, you might also notice there's a little turf here too, in that wash area. People have said, geez, Barbara, we just took out turf. You know, we took out about 12 point something acres in 2013. That's true. The number of acres that he would put in, 2.8 plus he would add 0.3. So in essence, we would be adding 2.5 acres. I asked Maddie, our green superintendent, Maddie, from a labor standpoint, a cost standpoint, how does it compare the desert to the grass? And she said there is no comparison on 2.5 acres. Much easier to use to have grass. Because people have said, yeah, but what about the water cost, et cetera? In terms of labor, she said it's a no-brainer. The grass is much easier to maintain than the desert. Hole number 13. On 13, these two tees back here on the left of the cart path, or back over there, one of them is, not used very often by the men. And if they're not used very often, and you have a tee that's equal distance, let's go with that. So he recommends taking those out, reshaping, the black tee. On this hole here, he wants to add a bunker on that left hillside for, aesthetics, balance, etc., because he would take out the greenside bunker on number 13. He said that bunker, he said you can't see it. And he said you should be able to see bunkers when you're playing a course. You can't see that bunker. He said it's very penal in the front. And that whole entry area, he would contour so you don't hit and then go down into the gravel. And speaking of the gravel, the wash, whatever you want to call it, Phil would love to see our washes returned to what they were when the course was built. And that was all sand. That's a discussion item because we told Phil that the vast majority of the membership kind of likes the washes the way they are right now because you can hit out of them if there's grass, doesn't slow down play as much, whereas sand washes would. So that's one of those continuing discussion items. But as of right this minute, kind of keeping things the way they are right now. Hole number 14. On 14, pretty much the same as usual, except for this new bunker that's there. And Phil said, well, that way people will know to stay to the left of it. Well, we already know to stay to the left of it. He would add a little bit of turf here. He wanted to add a second one. And we said, Phil, you can't do that. At any rate, so there is a bunker added there. You come down, and on 14, that bunker on the right-hand side, that green side bunker? He would take out the back half of it. He would take the front half and move it a little bit farther back so that it's a better entry to the green. Also, just to the left of that in the front, there used to be bunkers, and that would be recontoured so that you're not penalized so often for a good shot. Okay, number 15. On hole 15, the bunker on the right would be removed. The bunker on the left would stay, but it would move a little bit towards the middle, just a little bit, so that you don't have double jeopardy. That tree that's kind of right in front of you? You shouldn't have a tree right in front of you when you're in a bunker from a design standpoint. And so he would move this bunker over. The other thing that he would do is he would remove the left green side bunker. And what he would do is build up that side so that it kind of is at an angle so that if you hit there, your ball would hit the hill and kind of go back towards the green. In other words, it would kind of help you a little bit. Well, we were all excited when he said that until he originally had two bunkers added right here. We said, Phil, that's a very popular area when you're short. And so now we're down to one bunker there. But, once again, we're talking balance. But that might be far superior than having that big one on the left. Okay, hole number 16. On 16, we're taking out first bunker that's on the left. The master plan calls for that. And the bunker that's directly left of the green, that bunker comes out also. We still have two bunkers, and I believe this bunker right here is the favorite of many of us. But other than that, pretty much the same. But again, I'm not going over the greens because he would be reshaping and recontouring all of our greens to some extent, okay? Hole number 17. Okay, this is another hole where he has a design improvement feature on it. We've got our tees, we've hit our shot. The bunker that's normally right here, he moves over to the left and back just a little bit. We asked him why. He said, because it's more strategic. And he said the hole would be balanced better, but basically it's a more strategic location. And part of the reason he would do that is, you see these wavy lines? Right here is where those stones are that your cart drives over when you go down the hill, right there. He would take that hill where you drive down and he would build it up so that it's actually going like this. So if you hit your tee shot or a second shot and you hit that, it would kind of curve you to the left, okay? In other words, he would make use of that area that right now isn't. And you can see the turf added right there. Once you get to the green, the first left side, the first green side left bunker would be gone. The back green side bunker would be there. And he has added this one on the right, okay? In front of the tree, so that the tree is back here, the bunker's more in front of it. He said you need to have that there. And so that's why it's there. But at any rate, that's what he would do to this hole. He would make it so that it curves right in towards the hole, because everything would be raised up at the end of the fairway. You know how a lot of times some people can't hit the club they want because they're afraid they'll go too far? That would not be a factor here so much. Hole number 18. On hole number 18, this is the fourth hole that Phil would change. And he believes this hole is a classic hole. And what he would do, he would take the gold tee, the burgundy tee, and the white tee, and he would move them over approximately 60 yards. So that if you were here and you turned around, you would be directly in line with the black tees and the blue tees that are back there. And you gentlemen know what a great view that is from back there. On these other tees, we don't know because we're blocked out. At any rate, he would do that. As far as the cart path, he would take the cart path and run it in front of the black tee, behind the blue, and he'd go around the left side of these two new tees, and then he would come back in here. This cart path would remain, be it for maintenance, be it for people who use it to go up and down at times. But moving those tees, this is the only hole that he moves tees on, okay? Then as we go down the hole, we get to the big bunker, which will be gone, and he'll be putting in a much, much smaller, attractive bunker, okay? And then on the other side, he will add a pot bunker. And he said, you know, for aiming purposes. And we know where to aim, you know, but, you know, it's kind of fun listening to him. So anyway, that would be an aiming bunker. Once you get to the green, left green side bunker stays. The right green side bunker he would remove. And in back, he would make that an attractive, very nicely contoured retention area. Because right now it just is kind of, you just fall off the green and you're there. So, you know, he's done a lot. It's very fun to listen to him in person. I have many times. But you can see he's very big on bunkers. He's very big on greens. And he's very big on playability. Very big. To sum it all up, I'd like to say that reviewing and revising the master plan with Phil was fun. It was definitely a challenge. At times, it was a little exhausting, but it was definitely a privilege to get to do it. And the Greens Committee, as you're probably aware, has endorsed the master plan, and we're hoping that members see it in the same light that we do, because the implementation of this master plan would really be of tremendous value to our golf club. So, thanks for listening. How did it come off? Can you see? I can't see how to get it off because of the collar.
Oh, it's on there. Okay.
Kind of like going to prom. You know what I mean?
Can you hear me okay? Okay. Thank you, Barbara. I really want to thank the Greens Committee and all the committees for the work they did this summer. Typically, the summer is a slow time period. Fortunately, this year, nobody was taking vacations or going anywhere, so everyone was available to work on the master plan and to work on all the options that we looked at relative to how can we bring this plan to fruition. We started off with 7, 8 different options and worked through that. And what we're sharing with you tonight is what we, the board and the committees, have learned over the course of the summer, studying, what it would take to do this, what are the cost implications, and that's what I'm going to go over with you now as it relates to the master plan. This slide is just, I think, to put in context, sometimes we lose sight of the beautiful landscape that we have here at Terra Vita, and much of what Barbara was talking about, although she was talking about specific implications of golf, much of the master plan is focused on taking advantage of the views and the vistas that we have here, which I think is just as important as the golf course itself. And I think this statement kind of wraps it up, that our golf course is our greatest asset, and we must maintain a high quality course for membership sustainability, both in attracting new members and satisfaction for existing members. Starting with just some of the basics is, what are we trying to solve? We really just want to kind of to break it down to begin with. And our basically, the main thing is an aging infrastructure. We have an obsolete irrigation pump house. I don't know if you've ever been through it, but it's kind of interesting. It's kind of a flashback to the past. Old controls, rusty components. We have a degraded and a labor-intensive irrigation system. And you don't need to say much about the sand bunkers, but they are really beyond their useful life. They don't drain properly. They've got old sand, and the liners are deteriorating. Greens playability and inconsistent playing conditions are something also that we're trying to solve for. And limited capital funds to replace obsolete infrastructure. The gist of my presentation will be both on the master plan, but also the capital and infrastructure necessary to accomplish that. So what are we trying to solve? We wanted to develop options to address the aging infrastructure and inconsistent playing conditions of the golf course. And second part of that, and just as important, is to put Terra Vita on a path towards fiscal stability with a key emphasis on member satisfaction. Now, the process that we're undertaking is quite extensive and quite drawn out. The part that happened through June through September was the development of the master plan. That was prepared by Phil Smith. It was reviewed and endorsed by the Greens Committee. Now, in October through January, we're having these member forums, and I look at this as though we're bringing a project concept to you. You all are the owners of the golf course. You're the members here, and we're going to go through as many member forums. Unfortunately, we can't get very many people together in the age of COVID, so we're doing a number of those, both in person and for people who are out of town and are uncomfortable gathering. We'll do those by Zoom meetings. We're doing some of those next month. The master plan video was completed, and that was posted to the member website. On the 16th of November, we'll have the regular annual meeting. That will not be so much focused on the renovation project, but just to conduct the normal business of the club. Concurrent to this, and also a bunch of people have been working on this over the summer, is to update our strategic plan for the club. And that's an important document, and to get all the feedback from the members is just, what do we want to be as a club? What are our goals and objectives? Where do we fit strategically in the region? And after those three things are done and everyone's had a chance to hear the presentation tonight, to hear about the master plan, to get input to the strategic plan, we will conduct a member survey following the forums and before we do any voting as a board. So we're going to want your input tonight, but you'll also have an opportunity to do that through a survey process that will get very specific about what we're trying to accomplish. Then on the 26th of January, the board will meet, we'll review the forum input, and we'll make on a final decision. We're going to make a recommendation to you tonight, but we will modify that recommendation based on information we hear from the membership. And then on February 9th, we will have a full membership meeting where we'll present the final strategic plan and also the final recommendation on the renovation project. And then if it's required to have a member assessment, we would have a vote on the 1st of March. So that's kind of our recommendation, and I'll go into this, it's kind of jumping forward, is that we would not do this in the spring of 2021, but we would do it on the spring of 2022. So that's kind of the way we're intending to engage you as the owners of the club. I want to go over just some definitions so that we don't get confused when we go through this presentation. The master plan, you've just heard the presentation from Barbara. That's a specific plan that was generated by Phil Smith, and he was hired by the board of Terra Vita 3 years ago. The endorsed master plan is just the collaboration between the Greens Committee and the architect to come up with what we're calling the endorsed master plan, which has some changes from the original master plan. The renovation project, when approved, will be either to complete the whole master plan or some subset of that based on the input of the membership. I just want to clarify the difference between greens resurfacing and green rebuilding. The greens were resurfaced in 2013, and that is a process where just the first 4 to 6 inches of the green are replanted without really modifying the shape, the location, or the contour of the green. Rebuilding the green is the process where the entire green is rebuilt to address not just the top surface, but any substructure under that, as well as any drainage issues that exist, and could result in reshaping and recontouring. Usually done, as Barbara talked about, to address excessive pitch, unfair playing condition, and deteriorating substructure. And just to be clear on replacing the irrigation system, what we are recommending and is typical is not to go in and just replace portions of the irrigation system, but to abandon the existing irrigation in place and replace it with new high-density pipe as opposed to PVC, all fittings, irrigation heads, and the pump station. We can salvage some of the irrigation heads, but they would be used for replacement in the future. The decision-making process and the steps that we've gone through or are going through is we looked at, over the course of the summer, what are the best practices in the industry? What are the metrics that sort of separate good clubs from bad clubs? What would best meet our objectives and the mission that I pointed out earlier? And that's that first left block. That's the renovation project development. That's what we've done so far. Now we're in the bottom section of this puzzle, which is members, investors' input. And you saw the process that we've laid out to do that. The third step would be the top right corner, which would be to refine our conclusions based on the input that we get. And then the fourth part would be the final optimization. I mean, how can we reduce the cost? Do we bid it out? Who do we bid it out with? What's the timing? Can we get that shorter? Does the scope need to be changed? Are we getting the appropriate quality? I think it's important to emphasize what Barbara talked about in terms of making the maintenance crew more efficient. I mean, the more productive our maintenance crew can be, 30,000 square feet, fewer bunkers is less work to be done there. The more we can do that, the more we can keep our cost under control, and the more we can get more done to make the course look more beautiful and be in better shape. So those are important considerations that have to be taken into account. They have already been taken into account, but they will be refined as we get into the fourth part of the process. Some meeting guidelines. We'd like to respect differences of opinion. Everybody has the right to an opinion. There's no right or wrong, just different. As we go through the presentation, if you have questions for clarifications on anything I put up here, please bring those up as we go through. But if you have just general opinions about the outcomes, please wait till we get through the latter part of the presentation so you've heard everything, because we've tried to anticipate what your questions might be and answer those. And also understand where we are in the process. Somebody might have a suggestion about what kind of sprinkler heads we should use and things like that. We are not to that point. So send me an email on that. Don't talk about it tonight, because the next few slides are what we looked at benchmarking. And I shared with some of you, if you read my letters this summer, I had some attachments that came from club benchmarking, because there are a lot of clear benchmarks that really are good indicators of a couple of things: member satisfaction, demand for membership, and growth in initiation fees. I mean, those are the kind of things that indicate whether you've got a good club. And there's a number of things that correlate to that. The first one, and I know not all of you are accountants, but we tried to make this as simple as possible, but it's the depreciated value of assets divided by the original cost. And if you think about that simply, if you have a 15-year-old car, that's going to be a very low number, because you've depreciated the asset down, and it's a small percentage of the original cost. Club benchmarking recommends, and again, because it is an indicator of clubs that have high member satisfaction and have high demand for new members. Club benchmarking recommends that number should be about 70%, so that your assets should only be about 30% depreciated. We're currently at 23%, which you shouldn't be surprised, because we've got an irrigation system, we've got bunkers that are 25 or 30 years, 25 to 27 years old. We have a lot of old equipment, so that our assets are depreciated 77%. We've got 23% remaining. That just simply put, it indicates that our assets are old and beyond their useful life. That's the bad news. The good news is, and one of the imperatives that indicates successful club, is that our capital funding. Club benchmarking recommends that your capital fees as a percent of your operating revenue should be about 19%. As you recall, and it was not very popular, but there was a big increase in the capital fee last year. And this is kind of across the benchmarks of clubs. The 25th percentile only have about 5% of their revenue going towards long-term investment capital fees. For fiscal year 2020, we're going to be just north of 15, which puts us in the 75th percentile. And for fiscal year 21, we'll be up in the 25%, which means that the money that you're paying to the club is being reserved for long-term capital investment. That's an indication of good health going forward. Another imperative is that we should have club benchmarking, and this number would obviously change over time depending on to the extent that you're investing, but that you should have 9% of revenues in reserve for future investment. We're currently at 2%. By April 1st of 2021, with our current due structure, we'll be at 20%. And I'll break that number down for you here in a minute. But just to kind of simplify that, we want to stabilize our membership, providing a high-quality golf course and exceptional service. Club benchmarking data shows that clubs with a strong capital structure and funding are more attractive to members and have a higher initiation fee and growth rate. And when I first saw that statement, I kind of went, well, duh. I mean, you have to have a capital structure that'll support the club. This kind of breaks it down, and you can see of our entire revenue of the club, about 64.5% of it is member dues, and then a little bit in green fees, 3.4%, 7.1% in trail fees. That's what funds the day-to-day operation of the club, the water bill, the payroll, everything else. 15.4% is capital fees, and for this year we're estimating, although I think we're going to exceed it, 7% in initiation fees, a small revenue contribution from the pro shop, but that is what is paying for future investment, future capital expenditures, both long-term and short-term. And when I say long-term and short-term, when I say short-term capital fees, I'm talking about mowers, tractors, gators, things like that have to be replaced on a more frequent. Long-term capital is the bunkers, the irrigation, the greens, the things that need to be replenished. So what that means is the revenue that is coming in that is dedicated to capital, beginning in 2020, we are putting in about $875,000 a year is being reserved for capital, both long-term and short-term. Maintenance capital, which for us tends to be primarily leases, most of our rolling stock is leased, is about $200,000 or $300,000 a year. So that leaves about $600,000 a year going towards long-term capital. That's a good thing. Just the revenue, we're currently debt-free. We had some small debt was on the books that was paid off here a couple of months ago. We have $7,000 in capital would be reserved by May 1st, 2021, and $1.3 million will be reserved by May 1st, 2022. A little bit about the renovation project funding. Nancy Broadbent, our treasurer, has had preliminary, although thorough discussions with 3 banks. They feel that a 2021 start date could be difficult for the banks to finance, both because just of concern about the economy with COVID and everything. And we had an operating loss last year, although we're on very good footing this year. And that gives them some trepidation. They've indicated preliminarily that they're comfortable with a loan of $3.5 to $4 million. They put an emphasis on us achieving our budget because, bankers like predictability. They want to see that we have the ability to control our cost, and that we have to have an appraisal, which is kind of an ambiguous concept because I thought it would be quite hard to appraise an asset that doesn't generate any income, but apparently they can do it, which is good. But we have to have a 50% loan to value. I want to emphasize that the board supports a conservative approach to financing. Another one, I didn't go over the metrics, but clubs that tend to have things like high member satisfaction and high membership growth rate don't carry an excessive amount of debt. And there have been some horror stories in the industry of clubs that have taken on too much debt and have gone bankrupt, and we certainly want to avoid that. We have put in our pro formas contingencies where we would assume that we would lose 10 to 12% of our membership. If we had an assessment, that's been factored into our forecast, as well as leaving adequate reserves for other contingencies. So the key components of the master plan, Barbara went over this quite thoroughly, but we started off, and as I said, we started with a number of options. And to be honest, I think everybody on the board at the beginning said, well, really, all we need to do is our irrigation and bunkers. Those are the 2 pressing infrastructure issues that we have. But as we got into it and we said, well, we want to stay consistent with a master plan. As Barbara said, the master plan is a roadmap. We don't necessarily have to get to the master plan on day one. But as we started looking at it and you say, okay, we've taken out 30,000 square feet of bunkers. They're located slightly different. Well, then if we don't do anything with the greens, how do the bunkers interact with the existing greens? The existing greens were designed to drain into the bunkers, which is what puts the load on the drainage systems with the bunkers. And we also had core samples drilled into the greens to look not just in the top 4 to 6 inches, but down deep. And they came back with a report that said, well, we have kind of excessive compaction below the 4 to 6 inches level. Additionally, we have pitch and playability issues that really precludes us from speeding our greens up and doing the things that we would like to do. And they said, well, if you don't do anything with your greens beyond the top, you're probably going to have to do something in 3 to 5 years. Well, that's really problematic because we're going to, if we do this project and we take on $4 million in debt, we're going to exhaust our financing capacity in this round, and that we're planning on amortizing that over a 10-year period. If we have to do something in 3 to 5 years, we won't have any debt capacity to take that on. So we quickly came to the conclusion that we really need to do the greens at this time. And then the dominoes start to fall, because if you do the greens, the design improvements in the tee boxes, to do them when we're doing the master plan project, we're tearing up the golf course, the irrigation's all being torn up to fit this new configuration. The incremental cost to do that at this time is about $300,000. To do it at a later date would probably be 2 to 3 times that amount. So that's why we concluded that really doing the entire master plan is probably the best alternative. I'm going to step back a little bit. Barbara talked about this as well, but why does the irrigation need to be replaced? As she said, the American Society of Golf Course Architects useful life of an irrigation system with PVC pipe under pressure is 25 to 30 years. We're at 27. There's a quote there from Troon's VP of Science and Agronomy, and our experience here has been more and more frequent failures, and we haven't had, fortunately, it would be catastrophic if we had a catastrophic failure in the middle of summer or something where we couldn't water the course because some of the main lines broke, but that's the potential. The benefits, although it's not like a business where you can say, well, this is going to have a 15% ROI, but it certainly has benefits over the long term of applying water more evenly for more improved playing condition, less time repairing the system, and I talked about that, freeing up staff for other priorities. Installing HDE pipe in the new system will allow for a longer life, fewer fittings and joints, fewer failures. And then just the added technology of things like moisture sensor, being able to monitor, the superintendent will be able to monitor this from her phone and make changes as necessary. Just some of the things that we considered in terms of narrowing our options. I need to emphasize that the time is kind of on our side in that with our new capital fees, every year that goes by, we're putting $600,000 or $700,000 in the bank. So the later we do this, the more money we have out of our existing funds where we don't have to have a member assessment or take on debt. However, waiting, the flip side of that means having less than satisfactory playing conditions and increases the risk of an irrigation failure. So what the board concluded after considering many options was that doing the renovation project in 2021 was a bit too much of a stretch, both financially and from a construction standpoint and financing options. But waiting until 2023 seemed a little bit excessive beyond the amount of time that members wanted to live with the current playing conditions, particularly as it relates to the bunkers. So based on what we've learned so far, our recommendation, as I said, was to complete the master plan in 2022. It has multiple benefits: a new infrastructure, a better, more modern design, improved playability on the greens and bunkers. I talked about the green core samples. That's certainly a consideration. And the current shape of the greens and the fact that they drain into the bunkers. I'm repeating myself, but we really feel that this is kind of a one-shot deal. We've got to do it. We got to get it right. And to sort of defer doing portions of this, we would exhaust our financing capacity to do minimal, even if we just did the minimal infrastructure, bunkers and irrigation, we would still borrow $4 million. So that's about all the banks are going to give us. And upgrades in the future would be more costly. I've already said this, I'm repeating myself. Some key considerations that I want to emphasize so that you don't come back 6 months from now and say, well, you said this. The final cost depends on many variables. We are in the preliminary stages. We are presuming that we can get a loan of $4 million. Anything over $4 million requires a member contribution or further delay. By financing a good portion of the project, I just want to emphasize this point because some people have said, well, I've been paying dues for 20 years. Why should my contribution to the project be the same as someone else? Essentially, by financing the project, by financing $4 million of it, the bulk of the cost of this renovation will accrue to current and future members. It's not an increased burden for prior members because our dues over historically have been basically just to pay the operation of the course. We have not put much money into reserving for the future. So this capital fee that we're doing, the initiation fees that are being paid are funding the future of the club. So as I said, our recommended option is to complete the master plan in 2022. It would involve a new irrigation and pump house. It would rebuild and reshape the bunkers with capillary concrete. It would address the drainage issues. It would repair, contour, and regrass the old bunker scars. That's part of the plan. It would rebuild all 18 greens per the master plan, improve pitch and playability. 85% of the greens would be pinnable. They would be resurfaced with TIF Eagle Bermuda, which is still a Bermuda, but not Mini Verde, which is more durable and better, more modern design. The design improvements on 31017. We would plan to do regeneration of all the turf on the course by, I don't even understand it, but what's it called? Phrase mowing would help that. But the pros are it implements the master plan, aligns all aspects of the golf course with a 25+ year useful life. The cons are it requires funding. And now, the cost estimates that we have are that it will be between $6.5 to $7 million. It would require the closure of the golf course, as we understand now, from April, 9 holes at the 1st of April, probably 9 more at April 15th, through November of 2022. It would require an assessment of, and that would have to be voted on by the members, of $6,000 to $8,000 in that range per member, per membership. Next slide, please. A couple of questions that come up is, can it be done 9 holes at a time? The answer is yes. It would increase the cost by about $200,000 just because of the mobilization and demobilization of equipment. It would shorten the shutdown in the first year from May through November, but it would require shutdown in 2 years. Most clubs that have done that have regretted it. And it wouldn't necessarily be the back 9 and the front 9 because of piping under roads, so it would be kind of an awkward configuration to do that. The question gets asked, can it be done in 2021, in 2022? And I originally said from an engineering construction standpoint, the answer is yes. There's a little bit of doubt being thrown on that because the city of Scottsdale is a little slow in their permitting, and we would have to do some drainage studies and so forth. So we're trying to figure out if that could be done, but that's problematic because I've had some other experience lately with government entities with COVID, and they're just not there. I'm not sure why, but they're not available. So we have some concerns about that. Financing, as I mentioned, would be somewhat problematic because we don't really have, we haven't accumulated adequate cash to do what they would view as an appropriate equity contribution. So we would be on bended knees probably to try to make that happen. And resolving that would require an addition, because as I said, time's on our side. Every year that goes by, about $2,500 of your dues is being put in reserve. So if anything we do earlier takes $2,500 additional member contribution. Anything we do later has $2,500 less contribution in round numbers. I think this is really important to consider, is that if we were to do this, the greens, the bunkers, the irrigation, essentially the whole golf course would have a 25-year useful life. The loan would have a 10-year useful life. And if you go to the next slide, this kind of shows in terms of fiscal stability. Earlier I talked about the number of net fixed assets as a percentage of purchase cost. We've been kind of rocking along at this level where our assets have been gradually depleted and we haven't been investing. If we make this investment, obviously that number goes way high, and then it starts declining as we depreciate those assets over time. But the good news is that because our loan payment is, the banks are going to require that our capital fees cover 120% of our loan payment. Okay, that's just one of their requirements. So even over this first 10-year period, our reserves will be growing because we'll be paying off our loan, but we'll still be growing reserves. And then when we get to the 10-year period, 2020 years, as our assets start to deplete even further, our reserves go up. So when we meet in 2040 and are talking about the next iteration of investments, we won't need to require assessment. Should we schedule that meeting now? But taking into sort of the long-term viability of the club and fiscal stability, we would be creating a capital structure and an infrastructure, because really it is a failure if we have to have an assessment. We should be building reserves all along so that we can continually invest in the club. And that's the only way we're going to have a first-class club that everybody can be proud of and our kids and grandkids can be proud of, and it puts us along that line. So that concludes the formal part of the presentation tonight, and be happy to try to answer any questions you have or hear your comments.